Hello, everyone. My name is Gilda Ross. I'm the Glenbard Student and Community Projects Coordinator. It is a thrill to be here with Dr. Phil and also introduce a dear friend of mine, Jodi Norgaard. Jodi Norgaard was with us. We've just figured out, I think it was 10 years ago, and she's written this wonderful book, More Than a Doll, about her impressive, inspirational journey. And all of you who are watching at home and the watch parties that are going on inside the schools, we're really in for a treat. So I'm so glad you could be here today. Very quickly, I want to mention some of the upcoming events that are happening. It's an especially busy time of year at the GPS Parent Series. Next Thursday, we're welcoming Dr. Ellen Broughton. She has written several books. The first one was titled Smart Kids Who Couldn't Care Less. And the second one is Smart Kids Who Have Difficulty with Processing Speed. So that's going to be next Thursday. It is a virtual at noon and 7 p.m. And then we have an in-person event that will happen at Glenbard West. It will be a hybrid. It is at 7 p.m. only. Dr. Julia Garcia will be with us. There will be a health fair expo at 6 p.m. That's in the Glenbard West Library. And then at 7 p.m., we will introduce to all of you Julia Garcia. She'll be speaking to students during the day and addressing parents and community members at night. So I hope you can join us for that. I want to also let you know about our YouTube channel of past events that you want to check out. And the most important thing I want you to share today is this information. Everyone is welcome at GPS. Please tell a neighbor, a friend, a relative. These are accessible to everyone. Find the programs that speak to you and join us. Without further ado, we're going to get right into it. It is really my honor to share these programs at the College of DuPage with psychology professor Dr. Thill, who has the honor of the introductions of Jodi. Take it away.
Thank you, Gilda. I'm Azure Thill. I'm a professor of psychology here at College of DuPage, and I'm thrilled to be partnering with the Glenbard Parent Series. Thank you very much, Gilda, for pairing GPS Parent Series and College of DuPage together. I'm pleased to introduce Jodi Norgaard, who is an entrepreneur, advocate, author, keynote speaker, consultant, and an expert in creating change. She is the author of More Than a Doll, How Creating a Sports Doll Turned into a Fight to End Gender Stereotypes, which connects the dots from sexualized dolls to the subtle damage inflicted on girls' confidence. Jodi is the founder of Dream Big Toy Company and the creator of the award-winning Go Go Sports Girl line of dolls, books, and apps for girls encouraging healthy and active play over beauty and body image. She is an activist pushing media and retail to do a better job portraying women and girls beyond the stereotypes. As a toy industry thought leader, Jodi serves on the White House Gender Policies Council, collaborating on policies as it relates to children's toys, content, and publishing. She has been featured in national media like The Today Show, Forbes, Good Housekeeping, Chicago Tribune, New York Times, and Huffington Post. In 2016, she was named by Women's Running as one of 20 women who are changing the sport of running and the world. She is also a contributor to Ms. Magazine, and we are delighted to welcome her back to the GPS Parent Series today. Thank you, Jodi.
Thank you so much. Gilda, I just have to say, 10 years ago when I was speaking here, and that's when somebody came up to me and said, I'd like to buy your book. And I said to him, oh, I don't have a book. And that's what inspired me. One of the reasons that it inspired me to write a book. So thank you. I just thought about that. I'm like, wow, that's right. So anyway, thanks for having me here today. I am excited for a couple reasons. One, I'm a Glen Ellen resident, and my 3 kids graduated from Glenbard West. So that's pretty cool. And the second thing is that I have had the honor and pleasure of attending many GPS parent series over the last couple decades. How long has it been? Yes. Okay. So yes. So for the last couple decades, I've had the honor to hear so many fabulous speakers, and I'm so honored and proud to be here today. So thanks, Gilda, my friend. So I would like to read to you just a little bit about my book, just the intro, just to give you an idea of why I've continued with this journey and mission after so many so many setbacks, which seems like 1,000 to be honest. So here we go, one-handed today, but I got it. So girls who play sports don't play with dolls. Girl empowerment was a trend a few years ago. It's not anymore. You need to add more blonde, blue-eyed dolls and make their legs longer. Generally, kids who read, or I'm sorry, kids who are active don't read. A sports doll will never sell because girls like fashion. Can you create a fashion doll? Black dolls don't sell well. Boys don't read books about girls. I love your product, but it'll never sell because it's not mainstream and it's not a fashion doll. And ultimately, girls like fashion. Do you actually believe any of these statements? Of course not. But these comments are real feedback I received from the toy industry and publishing professionals over the last decade in response to the Go-Go Sports Girls dolls and books, the girl empowerment brand I sold worldwide. People continue to be adverse about change that empowers women and girls. We talk a good talk about the importance of girl empowerment, but cower when it comes to implementation. I know this firsthand. So anyway, those were real comments, and they weren't just bias from the toy industry and publishing industry. Thank you. And publishing industry. They echoed messages I had heard my entire life. And maybe you have too. So boys hear things like this too. They hear man up or toughen up or boys don't cry. Different messages, but the same message. Kids start to dismiss and they start to dim who they are allowed to be. And that happened to me. So when I was younger, I was very well aware of my empathy and my compassion and my sensitivity towards all others. I saw it as my strength. But as I got older, I began to hear that I was too sensitive and I was too nice. And even my high school guidance counselor told me I was too nice to go to college and into business, and I was better suited as a secretary or somebody else's assistant because I was nice. Glad I didn't listen to her. As I grew older, I continued to believe in my strengths and I used them to create a positive image product for girls. And I was still hearing that I was too sensitive, but now I was hearing I was too confident. I was too big of a feminist, and my product wasn't needed because women and girls were already too empowered. I began to hear comments that undervalued my achievements, such as, your little business is so cute. And how'd your little TED Talk go? I was called a working mom, a super mom, and asked so many times how I did it all running a business with 3 kids. I can guarantee my husband nor any man has ever heard those words, but maybe some of you have. So for the first half of my life, I went along with this BS. I didn't make waves. I didn't ask questions, but I felt like I was living in a dimly lit room and my eyes were adjusted to the twilight. I thought, I need to work harder. I need to toughen up. I need to buck up. I need to be fixed. But over time, this is what I've realized. Maybe it wasn't me after all. Because for far too long, women and girls have been told to change to fit in, to toughen up, that we need to be fixed. But here's the thing, we're not broken. It's our system that's broken. And for far too long, we have been trying to change kids to fit the system instead of changing the system to fit the kids, because every child should have that opportunity to grow into who they are supposed to be, their strengths, their passion, their ambition. Because even maybe they'll change the world. So I was speaking at a conference a few years ago and with a woman, her name is Dr. Terari Trent. And if you don't know her name, she is worth a Google. She started the schools in Zimbabwe with Oprah, and over in her presentation, she said, women are born to change the world. And I thought, well, this is something I've always believed. But if that's true, why aren't we teaching kids this? Why aren't we teaching kids that strength and leadership can look like empathy? It can look like compassion. It can look like assertiveness. That leadership doesn't come in one shape, one voice, and one volume. So it's not enough for women and girls to know that they're capable and strong. It's changing the way the world perceives that strength. It's changing the way the world sees equality. And that shift, that change, begins in childhood. So sometimes you hear people having an aha moment while doing glamorous things, like summiting a mountain or walking along a beach during sunset. Other people have moments of clarity while practicing mindfulness or meditating. My moment of clarity, the time I said, I see a problem, there must be a better way, and why can't I be the one to fix it? Was at a toy store. So not glamorous at all. So picture this scene. You are running into the toy store with your child by hand because she needs a wrapped birthday gift for a party she's attending in 30 minutes, right? One of those panicky parent moments. And so that was me, and my daughter Grace was with me, and she was 9 at the time, and she's dressed in her soccer uniform, and her hair is all crazy and messy pigtails, and her face is all rosy from exertion, and she has her cleats and shin guards on. And I tell you this because she looked like a normal kid on a Saturday afternoon. When we are frantically walking up and running up and down the aisles, when a dolly and a dolls just stopped me in my tracks. They had on short skirts, crop top, belly button ring, big hair. I look at my daughter. I look at these dolls. I pick up one of the dolls. And the name on the hang tag is Lovely Lola. And that's the little dolly that did it in for me and changed my life. Set me on a path. I literally had a meltdown in the toy store. I'm looking at this doll. I'm picking up the other dolls in the line, and it's Dazzle and Destiny and Sizzle and Sue and Cute Candy. And I'm like, what in the world are we marketing to girls? I'm sick and tired of this. I pick up the doll. I go to purchase it, and I say to the salespeople, look at this doll. This is terrible. You should not be marketing sex to girls. And they're like, lady, I'm 16. I'm like, whatever. Just tell your manager. And I'm running out the door, and my daughter's saying, Mom, stop. Is that the birthday gift for Maddie? I'm like, no. I'm buying it to show Dad. I need to show Dad, which confused her even more. So I did. I bought the doll, and I showed my husband, and I said, listen, I am so sick and tired of these negative messages that are marketed to girls, and I think I can do something about it. I think I can create a positive image product for girls that encourages them to be healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally through sports and physical activity. So as I look back at my entrepreneurial journey, it was that moment with Lola that made me realize something I've always known, that we as a culture, specifically the toy industry, was doing a lousy job showing girls strong, smart, and powerful images. And maybe I couldn't change a culture, but there had to be something I could do. And maybe I could change an industry. So that moment in the toy aisle was my moment of clarity, but it was preceded by many situations in my life, big and small. But it's also led me to, once I met Lola, to create this positive product for girls, be invited to the White House as a thought leader, ultimately sell my business, and now act as an activist promoting girl power, woman power, and gender equality, all because of Lola. We're on a first name basis. So I want to share a quote with you. So nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men and women. It's all about equality with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts, and I'm sure we all know some of those. And persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. So I'll be the first to tell you, I am not a genius and I'm not overly talented. And while I'm educated, one of my biggest goals in college was to attend as many fraternity parties as possible. And I was super successful. And so, for a lack of a better word, maybe I'm just average or normal, but I am determined and persistent, which has been fueled by passion. Now, persistence is a very common word, but I'm going to share the definition with you. Persistence is a quality that allows someone to do something that's difficult or opposed by others. And while persistence brings out uniqueness, it comes with baggage. It comes with fear. It comes with risk. It comes with incredible fatigue. But it also comes with joy and growth and ultimately reward. So my moment on the toy aisle was my moment of clarity, but it was preceded by many, many situations in my life, big and small, that shaped who I am and how I feel about gender issues. My own personal experiences of gender inequality and gender stereotyping that has led me to know the importance of girls knowing what their minds and bodies can do versus what their bodies look like. And while those gender issues were on my radar for years, for decades, I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know what I could do to change things. So I pushed it aside. And what really opened my eyes were my three kids, Peter, Grace, and Ben. Now, they're way older, obviously. But I show you this picture because this was kind of the time when I started to have this realization. So Peter is 8 in the picture, Grace is 6, and the little guy Ben is 2, but he's now the biggest out of all of them, but he's little here. So he's 2. And when my children were little, I saw them as equals. They were equally nice. They were equally funny. They were equally difficult. But I knew they should have the same opportunities. But I started to see this discrepancy in products marketed to girls and products marketed to boys around the ages of 6, 7, and 8. I started to see products marketed to boys associated with violence and aggression. And I started to see the products marketed to girls associated with appearance and attractiveness. And now my boys were never violent or aggressive, and I didn't want to encourage that. And Grace was never, she was super smart, and I didn't want her to feel like she all of a sudden had to focus on her appearance. And one of my first realizations of this was in a toy store. So when the kids were about 6, 7, and 8, this age, I wanted to buy a science kit for them. So I go into our toy store by myself, and I'm immediately annoyed. Why? Because there's a boy science aisle and a girls science aisle. And I thought to myself, seriously, when did science become gender specific? And I'm like, I didn't make any waves. And I go down the boy toy aisle and I find this cool volcano, right? That you put the vinegar and the baking soda, it's exploding. I'm like, great option, great outdoor option. I mean, the packaging had the boys on it with goggles. They looked like they were having so much fun. But now I'm curious, what is down the girl science aisle? Sure, you can be a scientist, but you can make your own fingernail polish, your own hair scrunchie, your own perfume, your own makeup, your own bath bombs, whatever. Again, it all revolved around appearance. And again, I didn't know what I could do personally to change anything, so I just pushed it aside until I met Lola. I'm just showing you her again because I want her fresh in your mind. That's when I knew I was going to make a difference. That's when I knew how I could create change. But what I didn't know was a long road ahead of me and the battle I would begin to fight. So, sorry. So I'm going to keep it on here for just a second. So once I decided to move forward on a positive image product for girls, I needed to figure out, what do I do? I know nothing about the toy industry. I knew nothing about manufacturing, designing, working with China or the United States, whatever it should be. I didn't know. I knew I was going to have to ask a lot of questions, but I had to start somewhere. Were there any sports dolls on the market? None. There were baby dolls, there were rag dolls, no sports dolls. But I did find this. 75 lines of fashion dolls. It jumped from baby dolls, rag dolls to fashion dolls. And in this category, I've created my own category called the sexy doll category. So up here in this far right corner, those are the Bratz dolls, BRATZ. No parent wants their daughter to be called a brat. We're all familiar with this. They're creepy, their feet come off. I don't get it. But here's the problem with these dolls. Young girls see the dolls in their life, in the marketing to them. They also see this type of, clothing in their media. It's marketed to them in their clothing. They see it every day in their music. So the problem is, once the girls start to imitate what they see, which is human nature, and they wear something similar to that to school, they're shamed. They're brought into the principal's office and they're told to put on their gym uniform, or they're told to call their parents or caregivers for a change of clothing, or worse, they're suspended. We've all heard those stories. We're slapping the wrong hands. We're slapping these little hands. And we're not slapping the hands of the manufacturers and the retailers who are marketing and selling this stuff to kids. So down here are the Monster High by Mattel. And the tagline here is be yourself, be unique, be a monster. Again, no parent wants their child to be a monster. But the problem with these dolls is that the uniqueness, and I can come up with about 10 ways in 10 seconds that a little girl can be unique without looking like a sexy, creepy cat. So Barbie up here looks pretty innocent. But I had a problem with Barbie in 2014. I just happened to be in New York, and it was announced that Barbie, who had just turned 50, made the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. I mean, the media is going crazy. Congratulations, Barbie. Congratulations, SI. And my head is spinning. What? Two reasons. Barbie's plastic. It doesn't matter if she's 50 or 150, she's going to look the same. But secondly, and more importantly, Barbie is a doll that is marketed to girls that are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Yet she made the cover of one of the sexiest magazines in our country that is marketed to grown men. I found this so creepy and disturbing. And like I said, I was in New York. I called CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox. I said, you have to have me on your show. This is not good for our girls and this is not good for our boys. And they all came back and said, no. But you know what? They knew I was onto something and they knew I wasn't going away. So now this little dolly here in the middle is an LOL doll. So is anyone familiar with those? Yeah, no? Okay. So I want to tell you that the dolls, those LOL dolls, had nothing to do with my research. They came out after I launched the Go-Go Sports Girls, but I do want to tell you that sexy dolls are alive and kicking. So, and I wrote an article about this a couple years ago, but the LOL, it's by the maker of the Bratz dolls, MGA. It was won the Toy Association Toy of the Year award for 2018, 19, and 20. So you're thinking, this is a pretty good toy, right? If the Toy Association gives them a big award. And it's reported, it's a privately owned company, but reported that MGA has made over $1 billion on these things. So what it is, it's a surprise factor. It comes in a ball. And then the kids unwrap all these little things. It's a landfill nightmare. It's a parent nightmare. But it does have a secret color change feature that the company disclosed. So for instance, the white hair may turn into pink and the pink bow may turn into white if you put it in cold water. But what they didn't disclose is that some of the dolls have a secret clothing change. You dip the little dolly in cold water. Some of them came out with sexy lingerie. Others came out with a devil's tail on their backside. Others came out with caution tape over their private parts, and yet others had shackles on their wrists and ankles. Who in their right mind could sit around a table, a conference room table, and say, yeah, that's a great idea? So I just wanted to point that out. So as you can see, My room is getting super bright and I can see where I am going. But what I couldn't unsee were the harmful gender stereotypes that were everywhere. And some started so young and they were so evasive, we failed to see the harm. So see, these are just a sprinkling of some of the things. Together we bloom to little girls, the let the world hear you roar to little boys, the beautiful girls coloring book to girls, the brilliant boys coloring book. And what really got me were the t-shirts. Training to be Batman to the boys, along with be a hero. To the girls, training to be Batman's wife, and I need a hero. What this is telling little girls and little boys is, hey, little boys, you're the main character. Little girls, you're in the supporting role. Let me tell you a story about how this plays out in adult life. A good friend of mine took a position as the managing partner at one of the largest law firms in Chicago. And she said she asked all the partners to write a short description of their daily activities and their clients and their in-house projects. She said, basically, they all do the same things, different clients, different in-house projects. Every man started his paragraph, I lead. Every woman started her paragraph, I assist. It's okay to tell little boys they lead, but we need to tell little girls that they lead too. One of my favorite quotes is by Warren Buffett. He said, look at what our country has accomplished using half its talent, and imagine what we could accomplish if we pulled women off the sidelines. So between the ages of 5 and 10 is a critical time for girls. It's a time when they develop concerns about body image. And sadly, by the age of 9, research shows a girl's confidence peaks. And then she feels the need to conform to a way a girl should look, should act, and should feel. And it's not surprising with the confusing and conflicting messages they receive. Okay, my room is super bright now and I need some hard facts. And I found, sorry about that, other terms that entered the my research. Sorry about that. And this is very important. So the terms that entered my research were things that boys and girls hear that are so deeply rooted in our culture that sometimes go unnoticed. And so I'd like for you to raise your hand if you've heard them, if somebody has told you these, or if somebody, even if you've said them, because it's okay. Again, I just want to show how deeply rooted they are in our culture. So ready? Here we go. You run like a girl. You throw like a girl. Don't cry like a girl. Boys will be boys. Don't be such a girl. Man up. That's a man's job. You play ball like a girl. And boys don't cry. Microaggressions. They're small and subtle, but harmful over time. And what these suggest is that girls are weak and boys are strong. And it doesn't only affect how men treat women or how women treat women, but how boys treat girls and how girls treat girls. So I heard many of these when I was younger. I was told many of these, but it really played out for me and struck a chord with me when I was an adult. I was in Washington, D.C., visiting my family with my kids. And it was a beautiful summer day. We're in my uncle's backyard. And my son, Peter, at 9, he was 9 at the time, said, Mom, would you play catch with me? And I said, of course. So I go to pick up the ball. I get ready to throw. And I hear one of my uncles say, hey, everybody, let's see if Jodi throws like an athlete or she throws like a girl. And I thought to myself, right, I wish I would have laughed. But I found myself throwing the ball to Peter and thinking to myself, whew, I pray I throw like an athlete. Shame on me. Shame on me. I wish, as I look back, I wish I would have stopped, put down the ball, looked at my uncle and said, you know what? Yeah, I do throw like a girl. And I play tennis like a girl, and I run like a girl, and I eat like a girl, and I brush my teeth like a girl because I am a girl, and I'm proud to be a girl. There's nothing wrong with being a girl. He would have understood, and so would of my kids. It would have been a great lesson for them. So when the words like a girl are used to mean something bad or something negative, it's so disempowering. So now I need the hard facts. I've got everything ready to go. I'm convinced I have a good idea. And I found that 17 million girls in the US play one sport a year. That's 1 out of every 3 girls plays one sport a year. And sports and physical activity are associated with improved academic achievement, healthy and positive body image, positive goal setting, esteem, leadership skills, and those leadership skills extend into adult life, where 400 female corporate executives were surveyed and 94% had played a sport when they were younger. So girls play sports, and so should their dolls. So now I needed to get designing. And what do? No, nothing. I'm a decent drawer. I'm not a great drawer. I'm like, how do I do this? Well, I measured my daughter and all her little friends that came through the door, their wingspan, the length of their legs, the size of their torso, the size of their head. And I shrunk it down so it was in correct proportion to a little girl's body. So it took 2 years from rough draft to the actual debut of the first doll, which was tennis girl Gracie at the US Open. I'll just tell you, I had just a burst of confidence one day and I said, you know what, I'm going to call the USTA. I did. I get to the right person. They said, we'll take 500. And those 500 sold out in 6 days at the 2008 US Open. So I'm like, I just happened to be at that US Open, and to see little girls walking through the grounds holding the dolls and actually seeing one on the Jumbotron holding the doll, it was amazing. I just knew I was onto something. And my next goal was to launch the line of 9 dolls at the New York Toy Fair in February of 2009. So everybody in the toy industry throughout the world comes to New York, to the Javits Center, to see what the next best thing is, to see what the next big thing is. I'm like, it's me. It's me. I'm like, borderline cocky. I'm like, I just sold 500 at the US Open in my first sale. I'm like, how could it not be me? Well, not so much. I had so many buyers come to my booth and say, oh my gosh, I love your product. It's amazing. My daughter plays soccer. She would love soccer girl Cassie. And I say, great. How many would you like to buy? And I'd get the hand. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. We're not going to buy it. And I'd say, why? It's like, well, because ultimately girls like fashion. Can you create a fashion doll? I'm like, that's my point. There's 75 lines of fashion dolls out there. And as a mother of a daughter and as a woman, I'm positive girls like more than fashion. Now, don't get me wrong. I love fashion. I love how people express themselves. I love how designers create. But does it define a person, especially a woman? Absolutely not. So I hung in there. I hung in there for a long time. And what kept me going was this discrepancy from what the buyers were saying. All the awards that I won in the toy industry, except the Toy Association Award, which isn't surprising. But anyway, I won all the top toy awards in the toy industry. This is just a sprinkling of publications that I was in, and and having a feature on the Today Show. So I knew I had a pulse on what our culture wanted. I knew I had a vibe that parents wanted more for their girls too, but the buyers were my gatekeepers. So what else kept me going? And this is really important. My team, my pack, the people who believed in me, the people who gave me their time, their talent, their shoulder to lean on when I thought I couldn't do it anymore. The people who said to me, you can't give up because girls deserve more. So after 5 years, and seriously, 500 no's, the rejection was off the charts. I told my husband, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, because we had many hearts to hearts. That could be a whole nother talk. But anyway, I told him, I'm going to Toy Fair one more time. And if nothing happens, I'll throw in the towel. I had to be realistic. Well, I had this crazy opportunity to pitch to 3 Walmart buyers. I had 5 minutes, and after the 5 minutes, they said, this is a winner. If you can write 6 books to go along with 6 of the dolls, package them together, we will put them in Walmart stores. Well, you can only imagine my excitement. I'm like, I'm alive. I'm not throwing in the towel. So I was already working with an author, and she had written 1 book, and I called her right away and I said, you have to write 5 more books. And I hired an illustrator and an editor. And in 2015, the Go-Go Sports Girl Read and Plays hit Walmart shelves. And that's what got the ball rolling. In 2016, I was invited to the Obama White House to participate in conferences on breaking down gender stereotypes in media and toys. And at the end of 2016, my business was acquired by a large toy company. And I see you're smiling. You're not going to smile here in a second because I have a bad news for you. No, I know it does sound all great because I thought that my story ended there. And after all my presentations, I would say, and in 2018, Jazzwares and I will empower girls throughout the world until they got cold feet. We went through 18 months of redesigning the doll into hard body dolls, which means that the plastic and smaller, they did a fabulous job. We came up with a marketing plan. I had a team of 10 people and they just got cold feet. They said a true girl empowerment product has never been done before, and we don't want to be the first. So it was the best breakup possible because they returned the intellectual property to me. They turned the brand to me. So they bought it and then they returned it to me. They didn't need to do that. So that's when I realized my journey has been more than a doll. And I'm sounding the siren that gender inequality doesn't start in our teens or our 20s. It starts the moment a child can hold a toy, a book, or watch a screen. So after all of that, after all of the research, the creating of the dolls, the writing of the Go-Go Sports Girl books, the wins, the losses, the writing more than a doll, watching all these messages quietly enter everyday life. Here's what I've learned. It's really not about dolls. It's not. It's about the messages and the stories that our kids hear, learn, and are told about who they are allowed to be. And that is something everybody in this room and listening has the power to influence and change. So this is what it comes down to. What kids see shapes who they can be. Toys, media, what they hear in everyday life shapes who they think they can be and who they think others can be. We need to redefine strength. I could do a talk on this. Strength isn't always toughness. It's not bullying. It's not being the loudest person in the room. It's not putting people down. Strength is compassion. It's empathy. It's kindness. It's leadership. Use your voice in the small moments. Call out inequality when you see it. Sometimes it's hard, but I do encourage that to point that out to not only other people in the room, but your children or little ones that are with you, like, like a girl, or, I throw like a girl, or boys don't cry, things like that. So it's okay to point those things out, and challenge the status quo, because that's how we create change. And if there is something that you don't like that is marketed to kids, call it out. I have in the back of my book some websites that you can go on and to report some things that are bad. One is called CARE. I'm not quite sure it's an acronym, but CARE. You can go to that website. You could email the manufacturers and the retailers directly, but most of all, money talks. If you don't like it, don't buy it. And actually, women hold 80% of the purchasing power in our country. So that's pretty powerful. And we need to understand and recognize that power that we have. And change happens when we persist. So my big moments started under ordinary circumstances. And what I've learned is you don't need to be a genius, overly talented, or have unlimited resources to create change. What you need is to take your best idea, step over fear, find your courage, find your passion, and persist, and do not give up when things get difficult. Thank you. All right. Does anyone have any questions? All right, Gilda.
So you've been doing this for a long time, 20 years. Take us through the trend from where you started to where you are today. Are you hopeful? Are you more disappointed? Did you imagine we'd be here? I'm curious to see your perspective.
Yeah, boy, when I started this, I did see a really great trend in equality. When the Me Too movement happened, I do remember thinking, I love this. I think this is great. It is about time, but I knew there was going to be a serious backlash. And there has been a serious backlash, and we have really, really gone backwards in equality in our country. In fact, the World Economic Forum we have moved down on that list of reaching gender equality. So we're right now about 132 years away from reaching gender parity, and that we keep moving backwards. And it's very, very upsetting. But to that point, I think people, women and men, are becoming louder, and they're not giving up. They're not being silent. I've had so many, women say, "What do I do?" It's like, use your voice. I don't even care anymore, right? It's like, if you judge me, so be it, right? I have to use my voice. And at my age, you don't really care if anybody judges you anyway. Yeah, so it's just, that is something where I do feel that women are not sitting on the sidelines, and good men are there to help us. Yes. And thank you for the good men coming out here today. Appreciate it. Yes.
So I have been teaching developmental psychology for 20 some years now. And when I teach child development, I always talk about gender, and we talk about the socialization of gender. So one easy activity that I have done is I will take 3 commercials for girl toys and 3 commercials for boy toys, and then show them to the students. And then they point out like common themes that they see. So girls' toy commercials tend to be pink and purple with pop music, and the girls are smiling and they're cooperating, and there is this sense of fashion. And then for the commercials for the toys that are designed for boys, there's a lot of angry faces. If they show the faces at all, a lot of it's based on the action and the hands, and there's rock music and it's dark colors. And when I first started doing this activity with students 20 years ago, the students would be like, well, yeah, that's just the way it is. And I have started to see that students now are more appalled when they start to notice these gender stereotypes that, again, 30 seconds, but 30 seconds over and over and over again with, more and more toys, is sending a very strong message to those little girls who are wanting those products, or those little boys who are wanting those products. I do feel hopeful that this generation of young people right now, though, is really fighting these gender stereotypes. And it's the first time I felt hopeful in a really long time. But I still have that dread because I'm still seeing the commercials myself. Do you think that that is a result of the toy industry? And when do you see kind of a change starting to take place? Because I still feel dread, but they give me hope, but I'm still seeing the commercials. Does that make sense?
I love that you do that. I mean, that is awesome. I did a study, maybe 3 years ago with the Gina Davis Institute. It's called Equal Play, and it's all about marketing and advertising to kids. So I'll send that to you because you'll love it. It is exactly up your alley. I love that you are seeing hope in this younger generation. I agree with you. this younger generation is like, yeah, no, this isn't happening. In the toy industry, I hosted a meeting at the White House under the Biden administration right before he left office. And it was very interesting. We invited, and I did it with Hasbro, and we invited all the top executives in the toy industry. So maybe about 20, and there were maybe 12 women and 6 men, and all the men declined. It was all women, which I thought was really interesting. I was actually so mad. And there was one guy that was a no-show. Who does that to the White House? I mean, that was pretty crazy. So I do find that the toy industry is men and women, 50-50. But at the top, it's heavy men. And the woman that I was working with at Hasbro, she heads their branding division, and she's president of their branding. She's the only woman. And so she's 1 woman, 9 men. She was the only one that didn't have a president title. And I saw one day on her email, it said, it always said, executive vice president, but now it said president. I'm like, oh, Kim, congratulations, you got a promotion. And she said, no. She's like, I went into the CEO's office and I said, you need to give me this title. I do the same thing as all the guys do. And he's like, nope, you don't. It's not a big deal. And she's like, it is a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a big deal to me. And he just poo-pooed it, but he gave it to her. And so, I mean, so those are the struggles. Like the toy industry is antiquated, and it's a little bit of it's not a little bit, it's a lot of the wash, rinse, repeat cycle. So, they're in for business. They're in it for business. They're in it for money. So they keep kind of doing the same things, and they're hurting. They'll figure it out. They have to get better stuff. Anyway, anyone else? Yes. Just so everyone else can hear.
So I'm on the outside looking in, and you've had this 20-year journey. So I'm almost embarrassed to ask this question, but when people go on Shark Tank, even more than the money, they're looking for a promotional partner, somebody that's going to, be behind their product and how valuable that is. So in your journey, did you explore at some point, Lindsey Vaughn, I ski like a girl. You're giving her 5% of your company. Caitlin Clark, I shoot like a girl. You're giving her 2.5% of your company. Simone Biles, I flip like a girl, and putting together a team of people that would be the face of these dolls that would help promote that as a product.
Good question. I learned about licensing, and I was really, if I wanted to, do you remember Caroline Wozniacki? She was a famous tennis player, and her agent had called me and said, Caroline wants to partner with you, but you have to give her 10% of your company and guarantee to sell, 20,000 Caroline Wozniacki dolls. And if you don't, you owe Caroline Wozniacki that money. I'm like, oh, I can't take that chance, right? So I couldn't afford it. So I like that idea a lot. And I also made it so far into Shark Tank, to be honest. It was I was in the final round to get on the show. And they ended up taking another toy company at the time called Ruminate. And this is a 2 women who I mentored. So I'm glad they were on it, but it was a difficult road for them. But yeah, it's just a very hard industry. And right now it's a very hard industry to go solo. So like just with one product, because manufacturing is so difficult. And I was so close just recently with Hasbro to pick up the brand. And I presented to 15 people throughout their worldwide company. And they were so close. And then the tariffs hit. And they're like, we can't do this. It's too expensive. We can't take on any, new licensing brands that don't have like big success behind them. So it's just exhausting. It's exhausting. Yes, 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 yes.
That's a shame because I've seen a million Shark Tanks where they say, I'm not sure about the product, but I like you and I believe in you. So I'm going to take that journey with you. And it's hard for me to believe because you're pretty amazing that you're presenting to 15 people and nobody's willing to extend themselves that way. Anyway,
I will have to say, like, it's not over with Hasbro. So, they're just waiting to see what happens, with this administration and the tariffs. So, yeah. So I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna go one here. What other question?
It's a cozy room. This is like sitting in your dining room. Um, it feels like kids are less interested in toys today and more fascinated by anything that is on a screen. And so I wondered how you translate your mission and vision to the screen, and if you can monetize it in some way, or if you can maybe, does it actually present a greater opportunity? Because I have heard that the toy space is increasingly challenging, but it's also a function of what I observe kids doing.
Yes, good question. Things have changed over the last couple decades, and now you really have to have like a component of the toy, the media, and the book, right? So you really have to have all of it. So again, what I realized on my journey, and as this became more of an entertainment industry versus a toy industry, like they work so closely together, is that I needed a giant team. And that's what Jazzwares gave me. They gave me, this team of 10, which was amazing. And they had all the connections to Nickelodeon or, to the video games and other, and to publishers. And that's what Hasbro would have as well. So I really don't think, I mean, first of all, if I ever went back into manufacturing again, I can guarantee my husband would leave me. 100%. 100%. It is so hard. It is so hard because, one time Walmart was so mad at me, but there was a strike on the West Coast and the ports, and they're like, "Where is your product?" to the buyer. I'm like, I could swim out there and get it, but I don't even know what boat it's on. And yeah, so I mean, sometimes you're just at the mercy of others. But, I do feel that if Hasbro were to pick this up, that's great. Otherwise, I need to focus on what I'm doing now, and I'm currently writing another book. And again, this, like I said, I just think that my journey has just been more than a doll, and I can't give up because it's not like I have ever been that type of person that would say, I'm right about everything. I have to be right about everything. But when it comes to equality, I'm 100% right. It's a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you want equality? Why wouldn't you want your wife, your daughter, your granddaughter, your sister to have the same equal rights as you? So that's what I keep fighting for. And you know what? I think my voice is being heard. Do you know who Sarah Spain is of ESPNW? I don't know. She just quoted me yesterday in her podcast. Some random person told me that. I was like, oh, okay. And writing for Ms. Magazine, Chicago Tribune has picked up my piece before. So that's pretty cool. So
When I look at the landscape across the world in terms of leadership, it seems like some countries, Europe maybe perhaps being the strongest, seems to have a more balanced view on women leadership than we have here in the US. And I'm wondering, what is the kind of root explanation for why that is different? And I think of Angela Merkel as being one of those classic examples that set a standard and held to that, even though she got ridiculed for many of the things that she did. But it seems to me that maybe we are not doing the best of jobs in terms of our whole education system, in terms of helping lift up this equality concept for the genders. And on a totally separate view, I'm wondering if you probed the term "woe men" and how that men is kind of a neutral factor, but then when you look at the word woman, it's woe men. And it seems like it connotes something of a heavier substance to it.
A lot of words have a root that go back to, men, right? So I get that. About the other countries, we were right there until we weren't. And it's really interesting to see how quickly a culture can change. Again, I do have hope. During COVID, I was a consultant for a DEI firm in Chicago. They called me because it was right after George Floyd, and they called me and said, "Oh my gosh, can you help?" I'm like, "Well, I don't do this." And they're like, "We don't care. You can do this." And I'm like, "Okay." So they needed me. And it's been interesting to see how that company went from, doing so much DEI work to barely staying afloat right now. And it's interesting when I guest lecture at Indiana University, maybe at least once a year. It's my alma mater. And this last year, when I went down, it would have been in the fall. The woman I work with, I'm a lecturer in their entrepreneurial school, Kelly School of Business. And I said, "How's everything going? How's everything going with all the DEI initiatives being rolled back?" And she said, "We were told by the administration, if we talk about DEI in the classroom, we will be let go." And I was like, "Oh my, that's what I do. Like, do you need me to tone it down?" And she's like, "Oh, no, 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 no." She's like, "That's why we like that you're here. You talk about business and you can talk about DEI. It's woven together." She's like, "So we're having to find creative ways to do this." And they also have said, which drives me crazy, when I speak down there, sometimes they'll say, "Gosh, we're so glad you come down here because really, we can never find women speakers." I'm like, "I can help you. Like, don't do that. Don't say that. There's so many women entrepreneurs out there that can speak." So anyway, okay, I'll go to Gilda and then back. Okay.
Got a final question. So you've got a question? Here, I'm going to hand this to you.
So second to last question. So you brought up the word persistence. And so do you feel I just listening to you, you embody persistence, but I'm wondering, I don't think everybody has persistence. So I'm wondering if there's something about you, just something about you that gives you that ability to stay in the game and almost like an athlete, you just stay in the game. For 20 years, you've been trying to go at this. And it does sound like I was inspired by some of these moments of success, which must have been thrilling to you. But then there were also moments of tremendous disappointment. And yet you seem to have sprung back and perhaps reoriented your strategy. But I wanted, for those listening, I think you inspire persistence, and you want to summarize for us what it is about you and your outlook that allows you to sustain your journey and not give up and not give up. What do you have in your psyche that allows for this?
Oh, that is such a good question, and it's so deep. Yeah, it is such a good question, and you're right. I do feel like, sometimes I'm just that athlete out there, just grinding away. I think, with again, it's a lot of things that when I was younger, my experiences of, for instance, my track coach, I wasn't running fast enough. And he said, "You should quit. You should quit." Why aren't you running fast enough? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm trying my best. So I quit. Right. So when people tell you you should quit, a lot of times you quit, especially authority. But when it came to this and people were telling me I should quit, I'm like, no way. No way am I quitting with this. No way am I giving up on girls. No way am I giving up on women. No way am I giving up on a society that should be 50-50. Because when more women are at the table, whether it's culturally or volunteer or business, the outcome is more prosperous. It's more beneficial for everyone. Every single person benefits from that. So I think with again, the perseverance, it is just something I just know I'm so right about, and there is absolutely no way I can be wrong. And I've gotten a lot of, I think the opposite of my coach, that story I just told you, is that when I wanted to give up, there was one time I was in Arizona with my husband because he had a meeting in February and I was tagging along. And he, we had a heart to heart, and he said, maybe you should throw in the towel. And I'm like, okay. And my phone ring, I look at it, and it's NBC. And I'm like, NBC? I'm like, I'm in my pajamas. I'm like, hello? And they're like, oh, hi, it's Stephanie from the Today Show. We want to do a feature on you. So those little things kind of did the opposite. They kept me going, right? Because the Today Show doesn't do a feature on just anybody. I got Walmart, Target, other companies. So I did get some good wins, But great question. I'm going to think about that all day.
Stand next to you as I say this. This reminds me, and you heard so many GPS and so many people in the room, but it's something that comes up over and over. Jericho can attest to this too. It's this idea of children need to develop that muscle for decision making, that heart for keeping going. And it seems to be because it comes up at every single meeting. It speaks to the fact that this is an awareness that parents really need to develop, that it's really, I say this often, it's not about preparing the road for the child, but preparing the child for the road. And what you talked about today, you just kept going. No bumps in the road were going to get in your way. And I think there's another takeaway from this morning for all of the people that are listening. So thank you. Big round of applause. Big round of applause. Thank you, College of DuPage.
Thank you, Gilda, for all this organization. And thank you, Jodi.